And again, at a high level, what this is doing is transforming a rebasing token into a 4626 like, I'm saying like because it's really only like in the fact that there's an appreciating exchange rate, into an exchange rate token. Okay, so here's what the collateral contract ends up being at the end of the day. So you notice it's actually only a bit longer, kind of surprising, not that long. So again, here at the top, write out all the units. The TOC is the wrapped contract. The reference unit is the underlying. This is not correct. This should be CUSDC. Sorry. Okay. Well, anyway, moving on. CUSDC is the reference unit, and the target is USD, and that's because one CUSDC is. I guess it doesn't really matter. Sorry, I shouldn't get hung up on this. It doesn't really matter because USDC and CUSDC are 1-to-1. I guess that's the idea here. Yeah. So since CUSDC, there's an in-between here, right? There's some sort of, and you can have any number of like in-between tokens, right? So you imagine like a ... right? It's like TOC ... ref. It can be any number of wrapping, deposit, whatever steps involved between those. That can all be abstracted away. And the only thing that's shown here is what is the token that's actually held, the ERC20 contract, and then what is that with respect to the reference token, okay? So looking at the actual content here, it ended up being pretty short. I don't think this function is really necessary, so we can skip it. This claim rewards function, right? So on the wrapper, there is a whole bunch of code implemented regarding how to figure out who to give rewards to and how much. Here in the claim rewards function, and this is actually executed via delegate call. This is not super well documented, but you can see here, claim rewards, delegate call. This will always be executed via delegate call from the backing manager. And this is why it's really important for assets to be added by governance and confirmed to not be malicious, because otherwise you can lose everything. So nope, that's not where we were. So it has a claim rewards function. It's implementing it, assuming that this is executed within the context of the backing manager. And the wrapper contract has been written to claim the tokens and then give them to the backing manager and in the correct amount. This is mentioned in this file, but just say it out loud. A single collateral plugin contract is going to be looked at and used by many different R tokens. Okay, so you cannot privilege a particular R token or have the collateral contract hold balances itself. Here it's going to override the underlying ref per TOC function, which if we call back to that appreciating fiat collateral class, is how we're going to pass through the exchange rate prior to revenue hiding. So basically here was the important function to find in Compound V3, right? Or at least in the wrapper contract. This exchange rate function is all that was really needed to get ref per TOC. And then in refresh, okay, so one, this accrue step is required. It looks like there's actually a mutation you need to do in Compound V3. All this stuff up here is just normal revenue hiding stuff. And here we are, some special default checks. So if the commit reserves is negative, fun. I guess that's what happens when you have an int assigned integer here, is you actually do need to check see if it's 0, then default immediately, right? Because that is not a valid state. Otherwise, if it's under some sort of thresholds that was set, so these are commit reserves. This is how much USDC is actually residing in the commit for people who came and lent USDC to come back and redeem, right? Redeem their CUSDC v3 for USDC. So you'll notice here this marks it iffy, and that's because this is not a, good enough indication that Compound V3 has broken. But rather, if this is sustained for a period of time, and that's going to be set by one of the variables in the struct, in the constructor, then after you mark iffy for, in this case, like 24 hours, then it will move to the disabled state. And these are what normal dpeg checks look like right here. Notice again, set to iffy, otherwise set to sound. And again, if you looked at the very, very top level, right? So I'm just going to pull up asset for a second. This is the very top level class. All collaterals, I think all, inherit from assets, actually. Let's see, what do we want to look at here? Right. So asset does not have defaulting logic because an asset is not something that can be used to back an R token, right? But the fiat collateral, and this is the parent class of all the collateral, it's named fiat, but that's just because it starts out sort of with the fiat has the minimal number of assumptions, right? Relative to any of these other tokens. You can see there's some helpers here. Mark status. You should use this, passing in the status to mark it as, and it has its own logic related to updating some internal state and so on to make sure you never do silly things like move it from the disabled state back to sound or iffy. Once disabled, it should remain disabled. That is enforced via this function. You just need to use it via mark status, passing in the status. And you can see here the default values, like I said, 1 for target to ref, 1 for ref per talk, since it's non-appreciating, and that's what appreciating fiat collateral comes in and changes, right, and adds the revenue hiding to. And the base refresh function, which is going to be good enough for most cases, but not all. Okay, so I definitely didn't cover everything in this video. There's a lot to figure out while writing a collateral plugin. Please feel free to hop in the Discord. We will answer questions in our technical discussions channel, I believe is the one. And please, before asking questions, read the entirety of this doc and everything linked to within this doc. That will be very, very useful, and you'll come in with the necessary prior knowledge. Okay, thanks.
Once your parameters have been set up correctly, now you can go ahead and deploy the R token with the deploy R token button right here. This is the first transaction that we'll have to sign. Your wallet will ask you to sign this transaction, and it will take a while to confirm the transaction, but once it is, now we can go ahead with deploying governance. Now that the R token has been deployed, now it's time to deploy the governance contract.